Good afternoon, viewers. I'm happy to be back after a long gap. There has been almost about a week's time since we conduct our last session. I'm sure you had a good time and could catch up with the courses that we have completed so far. Before we go to our topic today, which is distribution network, I'm going to just ask you how many of you would have followed a seminar that was conducted in Vijayawada last week on the 25th and 26th of July. The name of the seminar was National Seminar on Logistics. This was held in Vijayawada on 25th and 26th of July. This was telecast live on MANATV, and I was present in the seminar, and I was told that this was telecast live to every part of Andhra Pradesh, and there was a large viewership. A lot of students from different colleges has followed this particular seminar for 2 days. If you haven't by any chance, please go to YouTube and catch up and see the seminar. You will see the entire seminar, both the days on YouTube. Okay. The reason that I am urging you to see this seminar is that you will understand, we have been discussing, we have been telling you since the beginning of this particular course, how significant and how important logistics is as a sector, as an industry, as a curriculum, because of its immense opportunity in the future. This seminar was attended by industry experts from different fields. From the field of logistics, there were senior people from the ports, there were senior people from 3PL industries, from packing and moving, from freight, from different sectors. There were representatives from big and very successful startups. So, everybody came. There were representation from the AP Chamber of Commerce, there was representation from APIIC, there were representations from the various dignitaries who happens to be very senior authorities in different districts of Andhra Pradesh. So, these people came and they gave their valuable inputs and on how significant logistics and supply chain would be in the days to come, and particularly in reference to Andhra Pradesh. The state is growing very fast. There are a lot of investment and developments in the area of port, in terms of infrastructure, the airports, the roadways, the connectivity, the e-commerce, retail sector, the cold chain industry, and we are actually covering all these subjects during our course of this particular course on MANATV. So, I would urge you and see and listen to these industry experts, listen to these dignitaries, listen to these people who have experience of 25-30 years in the industry. There were people from the maritime industry having experience of 30 to 35 years speaking in this particular seminar. So, before I go to our topic today, distribution network, I would again request you to go and see the recording on National Seminar on Logistics of 25th and 26th July on YouTube. If you have any questions, I have already given you my mail ID, which is I would again give you my mail ID, which is mukherjee.d@apssdc.in. In case you have any questions regarding the seminar or otherwise, if you are struggling to get the video footage or whatever it is, don't hesitate to write to me. Thank you. So, let us get on to our topic today, which is distribution network. Now, in supply chain and in logistics, we have been discussing about a process by which a particular product or a service which originates at one place. The manufacturer produces a product, and broadly this has to be delivered to the customer. This is a broader view of logistics or supply chain management. Of course, in our last couple of months, we have seen a number of entities, a number of functions, a number of operational process, but broadly from manufacturer to customer. Now, any item, any product, whether it is a consumer good or an industrial good, once it is produced by the manufacturer, it needs to be delivered, because the primary objective of producing that product is for consumption. So, the manufacturer has a responsibility of delivering the product to the customer or the consumer. How it is delivered is all about distribution. The very word distribution imply that the origin is one, generally the source is one, whereas the channels could be different. There could be various channels by which this product can be delivered to the customer. In the modern world, we see that the companies are using different and various methods. They are using various channels, they are using various distribution channels to deliver a product, because the market is expanding. Today, the market is not restricted to one or two cities or states. Even the smaller states, smaller cities, they are also very, very potential as a market today. So, it is necessary for a manufacturer or for a company to reach out to this huge network of market, and not necessarily within the country, abroad as well, because companies who are going global needs to market and deliver the products across the boundaries of a particular country. So, in this session, in this topic, we are going to understand and we are going to learn what are the different channels, what are the different methods of distribution, how a company would distribute their product or services to the different customers who are located across the country or beyond that. So, to start with, before we discuss about the various distribution channels, we need to understand what is distribution, what is meant by distribution, what is the role of distribution, what are the benefits of distribution. Let us see our presentation, and let us see the first slide of our presentation. What is the role of distribution in the supply chain? As always, as we have done earlier as well, as I have suggested every time that I go through a particular presentation, we need not go through each and every word of a particular slide. Just refer to those very critical and significant points and words. The steps taken to move and store a product from the supply stage to the customer. So, when we distribute, sometimes a product is directly moved from the company to the customer without any halt, without any stoppage, without any pause. But there are times when in between, in transit, some warehousing, some storage is also required. Distribution directly affects a proper distribution channel, a proper method of distribution would ensure an optimum cost, a minimum cost, a high customer experience, customer service, and eventually profit, earn profit for the company. What is the distribution network that a company should choose from low cost to high responsiveness? We have been telling you throughout, it is the responsibility of a logistics manager or a supply chain manager to balance between cost and customer responsiveness. Neither can overhaul the other, neither can play a bigger part than the other. There has to be a balance between the two. That is how a company eventually becomes a profitable company. So, in the choice of distribution network, what sort of distribution network, what is the method of, what is the process through which the product needs to flow from the supplier or the manufacturer to the customer will determine the profitability of the customer, the reputation of the customer responsiveness, the brand of that particular company. So, that is the role of a distribution in the supply chain. Let us go to our next slide. So, what are the factors that influence distribution network? Distribution network performance evaluated along two dimensions at the highest level. As I have been saying earlier, customer needs, it is probably today, and if you remember we have discussed this in one of the sessions earlier, today the cost of operation is taking a back seat. It is what the customer need is more important. The priority today is customer satisfaction, customer need, because of the huge competition. Every company, every industry, every product or service has huge competition. So, it does not take much time for a customer to shift from one company to the other, in case their needs or demands are not taken care of. Of course, followed by the cost of distribution. Distribution network design options must therefore be compared according to their impact on customer service and the cost to provide this level of service. So, again we repeat, the factors are two. One is customer satisfaction and what is the cost I would pay. And obviously, the promoters or the owners of an enterprise or a company would expect their logistics manager to have a perfect balance between customer satisfaction and the cost of distribution. Let us go to the next slide. So, the factors, elements of customer services. So, when we say customer satisfaction, that is a very broad term. So, in terms of what is customer satisfied, what are the parameters, what are the different aspects that would satisfy a customer. Response time, that is from the time it is ordered, we have discussed this as a lead time, you can also say. So, the response time, how fast, how quickly a customer or a supplier or a company would respond to a customer's need, the variety of available product variety, the different range of product, the options, availability of the product. A company should be in a position to deliver a particular product as fast as possible. So, it should be readily available to the company. The experience of a particular customer during the entire transaction, right from placement of order till such time it is delivered, and even beyond that there is post customer service as well, post delivery also there are different services which are required. Order visibility, a customer today particularly in the field of e-commerce, today with the advancement of technology, a customer would expect to see his product or to have a knowledge of the product being sent from the company right to the point that it is delivered to the customer. So, he should know the status of that particular product, where it lies, when was it dispatched, when is the customer expecting that particular product, all this. So, this is called visibility and returnability. We have discussed in reverse logistics that in case of an error, in case of excess product, in case of a shortage, in case of a damage, in case the customer is not satisfied, If the requirement is not fulfilled, the company should be in a position to promptly take the product back, either for repair or for we have seen for replacement, complete replacement. So, these are the factors which combine together to form our overall customer satisfaction. Now, as far as the cost is concerned, when a product flows or a moves from the manufacturer to the customer, so we have just discussed these are what the customers expect in terms of services: availability, variety, availability, experience, visibility, returnability, etc. And to do that, the company incurs certain cost. And what are these costs? Inventory, to hold the inventory, and we have discussed inventory management separately, ordering cost, holding cost, etc. Transportation cost, of course, it is a large portion of the total logistic cost to transport that particular product or item from the manufacturer to the customer, handling the product within the warehouse, in transit, loading, unloading, and definitely there is a cost involved in providing the information that the customer needs. There is a back end office, there is a back end support, which should always be dynamic and should always be active to ensure that the customer is constantly informed about the movement of the product right from the manufacturer to the to him, to that company. So, these are the various costs. Let us go to the next slide. I am sorry, there seems to be a problem, just bear with me. So, what is the value of distributors? So, now the distribution, this is what is distribution, right? The movement of the product through a particular channel to the customer is distribution. Now, who is doing the distribution? There are distributors who distributes. There can be one distributor, there may not be any distributor at all, or there can be multiple distributors, there can be a distributor and a retailer as well. So, we have to see what is the value that a distributor plays in a supply chain. In distributing consumer goods, ensuring lower transportation cost and improved replenishment. MRO products, order plan few items with lower value, distributing electronic components. So, these are the value of distributors in the supply chain. Going further, so what are the values of distributors? They reduce the inbound cost, we have studied earlier that there is an inbound logistics and there is an outbound logistics as well. So, they reduce the inbound cost, they reduce the outbound cost, reduce safety stock and inventory cost, stable order to manufacturers to allow effective production planning, provide better response time, offer one-stop shopping with products from several manufacturers. Now, these distributors, what do they do? That means people who are responsible in ensuring that the product available from the manufacturer or product produced by the manufacturer delivered to the customer, and more often than none these distributors are not a part of the manufacturer. Sometimes and more often than none this distribution are a different company altogether. They are not a part of the original manufacturing company, but they add a lot of value, because like for instance transportation, okay. There are a number of companies who do not have their own transportation system. By that I mean they do not operate their or manage their own fleet. The entire transportation system is outsourced. Similarly, the distribution of product which is very close to the marketing function of a company. They are also a different entity or a different company who are responsible. Now, they provide a lot of value add which otherwise would not have been possible if the company themselves would have taken the company would have done the distribution by themselves. Today in this we have discussed earlier, the range and the number of customers and the market is increasing. So, it is not possible for the manufacturer to do the distribution themselves. So, once again we go back to the values that our distributors play in the supply chain. We will read it once again very, very carefully. They reduce the inbound cost, they reduce the outbound cost, and number of times this is because of the aggregation. Reduce safety stock. We have studied very briefly just in time policy and inventory cost, effective production planning. Say they are a very, very effective connect between the customer and the company. So, they provide some valuable information which ensures the company does a very, very optimistic production planning. The better response time, that means they are much closer to the customer. So, they are in a position to obtain a particular product from a company and deliver it at a reduced time. Offer one-stop shopping with products from several manufacturers. So, sometimes a particular distributor, they offer economies of scale to a particular company because that particular distributor often caters to various manufacturers. There are manufacturers who have very, very dedicated distribution and retail channels, who are bigger, who are big time operators, they are big companies. But smaller manufacturing companies, they do use distribution channels which also are distribution channels to other manufacturing companies. So, automatically there is a benefit of cost reduction that is enjoyed by the manufacturer. Let us go to the next slide. The ownership, let us go to the slide. The ownership structure of the distribution network can have big as impact. The choice of distribution network has very long term consequence. Consider whether an exclusive distribution center is advantageous, product price, commoditization. That is exactly what I said, that for bigger companies, they are in a position to depute or engage a distribution channel which is exclusively for them, for that particular company, because they are in a position, their volume of transaction is high. So, they are in a position to maintain an exclusive distribution channel, but that is not always possible for other smaller organizations who may have to use distribution channels which are common to many. Now, we have discussed and unfortunately from now we are going to discuss the different types of distribution. The first of which is a direct shipping. When I say direct shipping, as you can see in the monitor, Dell as a company, they are known to use this particular shipping or distribution channel which is direct shipping. That means, from the manufacturer to the company, there are nobody in between. There are no distributors, there are no retailers, there are nobody in between. And we will later know that what kind of advantage or disadvantage this particular distribution channel offers to Dell. So, Dell would has a particular reason for opting this kind of shipping or distribution, which is directly from the manufacturer to the customer. They do not allow anybody in between, intermediaries, to handle their shipment, because they want to be connected to their customers directly. get useful information, get useful marketing information, and able to serve the customer better than their competitors. So, there are certain factors why such. Now, we have seen there are two factors. One is a cost factor, and in that cost factor we see there are, earlier we have discussed, right, distribution management. Distribution management, the success and failure of distribution management lies in balancing the customer service, customer response and the cost factor. And we have discussed, in order to distribute, what are the costs? It is very common sense. The cost lies in transportation, the cost lies in handling the materials within the warehouses, in transit, loading, unloading, transportation, warehousing, inventory management, etc., and information, of course. Now, we have to see what benefits or what are the advantages or disadvantages in this particular distribution system, which is storing. The manufacturer would store the items themselves. That means, in this case Dell, as an example we gave, Dell would store their PCs or their laptops, whatever it is, themselves, and they will deliver to the customer directly. So, let us see what are the implications on the cost factor. Just look at the monitor. The inventory management, it is, the inventory has a lower cost because of aggregation, low demand, high value, product customization can be postponed. Transportation is high cost due to distance and disaggregation. Facilities, lower facility cost, handling cost may lower if small shipments can be managed. Information, significant investment in infrastructure to integrate the supplier and the buyer. Now, you have to see there are certain trade-offs that the customer has to do. The transportation cost is quite high over here because of lack of any distribution channel in between. In this case, in the case of Dell, even one PC or one computer that is produced needs to be delivered to the customer, from manufacturer to customer directly. So, you see they cannot aggregate, they cannot hand it over to a distributor or a retailer to deliver, who would aggregate and pass on the benefit of low transportation cost. But on the other hand, they obtain a better customer responsive, because since they are directly in touch with the customer, all possible informations regarding the product, a feedback are available with the Dell quite fast because of the direct connectivity with the customer. The facilities and handling, of course, it can be reduced as we can see if smaller shipments are handled. If Dell produces a large number of shipments, then their warehousing and the material handling cost would rise. But if they are able to manage smaller shipments at a time, then probably their investment or their operating cost on warehousing or material handling will not be as high. So, these are the now we see the service factors. We have seen the cost factors, let us see the service factors. Response time, high response time, complicated receiving. Product variety, easily provide high level variety, easily provide high level product availability, good as home delivery, but suffer as partial shipment from different suppliers. Order visibility, more difficult but more important. Returnability, expensive and difficult to implement. So, as you can see, both the cost and service factor for this kind of distribution center, there is a trade off. Dell experience certain benefits as far as the cost and service is concerned. They also experience certain disadvantages as well. Okay. For instance, the variety. They can easily, since they have a direct connectivity with the customer, and since they are delivering to the customer directly, they can deliver or they can attend to any changes in features, or they can attend to or address any changes or any variety or any options that a customer demands, because of their direct connectivity with the customer. So, on that part it is quite beneficial for Dell following the manufacturer storage with direct shipping. We will go back to the slide once again and read it carefully once again. So, what are the factors here? When we say service factors, it is the response time, the product variety, availability of the product, the overall customer experience, the visibility and returnability. So, performance response is high response time, complicated receiving. But more often than time, I hear the response of is quite good as far as the customers is concerned, because they are directly in touch with manufacturer, and the customer, more important, does not have to go through any distribution channel, any intermediaries, anybody in between, thus making it more complicated in reaching the actual manufacturer. The variety easily provide high level variety. I have said they can easily do that because they are directly delivering, because the product is not lying with the distributor or the retailer. Same with product availability, high level product, the customer experience is definitely good, and that is exactly why Dell as a company opts for this particular distribution channel with direct shipping. So, if you see, there are a number of factors where this particular distribution channel is of benefit to Dell, but there are few areas which throws a lot of challenges as well. Now, we will go to the next distribution network, which is called in transit merge. Now, if you see on the top, the factories, by factories we mean to say the manufacturer. Factories are physical locations where a particular product is manufactured or produced. Now, what happens is that the materials are handed over to a carrier, a logistics service provider. In this case, vis-a-vis the first option of direct shipping to the customer by the Dell, we have seen the first option. Here the difference is the manufacturer does not store the items, or they do not store the goods. The storage of the goods, the responsibility of storage lies with the carrier, that is the logistics service provider. The logistics service provider would collect product from the different factories of a particular manufacturer, and they would merge at a common location, which is called in transit merge. It could be a warehouse, it can be a distribution center, whatever it may be. From there, they would use, the carrier would deliver to the end customer. Just let us go back to the slide and see how it happens. So, the dark lines, they denote the physical movement of the good from different factories to a warehouse or a distribution center in between, and then from there to different customers. The necessary sorting, necessary assembly, necessary labeling, necessary etc. would be done, and then would be delivered to the customer. Now, the carrier is not responsible for any, the carrier is only responsible for the physical operation, the physical collection of the items from the factories and deliver to the end customer. But the responsibility of information, of feedback, would lie with the retailer who represents the company in that particular region or area. So, if you see, the dotted line denotes the movement of information from the customer back to the company. So, a carrier, again I repeat, picks up shipment from the factories. They would store somewhere in between, which is called in transit merge. They pick up the shipments from different factories of a particular company, store it somewhere in between and ultimately deliver it to the customer, whereas the rest of retailer would be responsible for information collection and processing and back to the manufacturer or the company. Here again we have the cost and the service factors. Let us see the, first of all we will go back, in transit merge. So, if you see the cost factors, again the parameters remain the same: inventory, transportation, facilities handling and information. The inventory is higher than manufacturing storage. Difference is not large for faster moving items, items which are fast moving, which needs immediate delivery, which is not required to be stored. Other than that, the inventory management or the cost of inventory is higher than what it is with the manufacturer storage. The transportation is obviously much lower than manufacturer storage. Reduction is higher for faster moving items, because items are aggregated, they are picked up by a carrier from different factories, and the company in this case are not using exclusive transportation from its point of manufacture to the point of delivery. So, in this case the cost of transportation is definitely low. Facilities and handling is higher than manufacturing storage. Difference is large for slow moving items. Information is simple infrastructure, because the information, because the retailer is closer to the customer. There are retailers for a certain group of customers who are closer to the customer, who would collect the information and send it back to the manufacturer. So, the system is quite simple. Now, we will see the service factor. The service factor, again the parameters remain the same: response time, product variety, product availability. So, okay. So, the next, we have gone one slide ahead, I am sorry for that. So, the next distribution channel is distributor storage with carrier delivery. So, there are basically 5 distribution networks, there are 5 distribution channel, or the 5 ways by which, one we have discussed just, 2 we have discussed just now. One is the manufacturer would store the items directly, store the items themselves, and they would directly deliver. Number 2, the manufacturer will not store the items. The manufacturer will use a logistics service provider, who in turn would pick up shipments from different factories or different production units of the company. They will take them to an in transit merge, they will take them to an in transit distribution center or a warehouse, and from there they will distribute. The third is, now that you see on the screen, is where the distributor is storing, not the manufacturer, not the carrier, but in this case the distributor would, as if you just see this board, the distributor will pick up from manufacturer and then the distributor will use carriers for the delivery. So, in this is called distributor storage. As you can see in the frame also, we have a distributor. If you see the blue blocks at the top, which denotes the manufacturer, the blue block in the between is the distributor, and the blue blocks at the bottom are the customers. Here also the dark blue lines denote physical movement of the shipment, whereas the red dotted lines denote information from the customer back to the manufacturer. We will end our session today over here, and today we have one session. The next session will not be on Saturday, as we have been doing in the last couple of months on Tuesday and Saturday, but we have preponed our session from Saturday to Friday. So, from now onwards, the session on logistics and supply chain would be on Tuesday and Friday, and of course, few days we will only have one session and few days we will have two sessions. So, on Friday we are scheduled to have two sessions. So, we will complete our topic on distribution network on Friday. Till such time, thank you very much and have a good evening.